Essential First Principles, today's 5-minute short brought to you by Success Mentors University. I'm Joshua Barnes and I'm joined by Al Shalloway. So I'll kick things off and start us off with so we hear a lot about principles in the Agile space. But Al and I focus on what we call first principles, and those are principles that are more self-evident based on observation, things that are actually happening and things that, again, we can observe. So Al is going to provide a little bit of an initial lift of some of the things that we typically focus on. Al?
Yeah, and this isn't a complete list. It's just a few core
Right.
ones. The word principle is kind of confusing, actually, or multi-meaning because it can mean guidance, like, well, eliminate waste. That's called a principle of lean, but it's not it's not a first principle. That's something you want to do, you want to achieve. And the reason you want to eliminate waste is kind of obvious. You'll be spending time on stuff that's not useful. You'll have more work to do. But um, what is it that's causing all this is worth knowing. And these are first principles. These are principles that doesn't matter what your opinion is, it's the way the world works. And they may or may not be 100% all the time because we're embedded in some level of complexity. So we may not see anything. But here are five I've kind of looked at that I think are pretty important. One is that systems inform behavior. And you see this in Deming's comment about 96% of our problems come from the system. In other words, the environment you live in. And an example of this is if you've got testers and developers working separately over different times and in different time zones there, that's the system you're in. That's a lot worse than when you have them working together in the same room. So you'll see that the environment, the situation or context you're in has a lot of issues. And that's what I mean by systems informed behavior. Another one, and you've seen this too, is delays in workflow and feedback and adding value causes waste. If you do something and then nothing happens to it for 2 months and then somebody finds there's an error, that delay is causing waste. The classic example is when most devs think they spend a lot of time fixing bugs, when reality is it's finding the bug. Because what happens is they put it in, it's not detected for weeks or months, and then they've got to go back and recreate it. And there's been all this work. So that's an example of delay in the workflow. Delay in feedback is you build something and it's not the right thing and you don't know that, and bam, all of a sudden you've wasted all this time. So delays cause waste, and these two go together, and that you should maybe have systems that don't cause delays, like waterfall causes delays. Small items go faster. That's kind of self-evident. You can build a small item faster. Ellie Goldratt once said something to the effect of sometimes working on small items is all it takes. Smaller batches is sometimes all it takes to bring a system back into control. And it's because by working on smaller items, you get quicker feedback, you get less delays. Again, this is the systems informed behavior. If you're a product manager or a product owner and you're giving big chunks to the team to work on, their system is the size of part of their system is the size of stuff they're getting from you. And you're actually causing waste downstream. This is again why we go small with things like minimum business increments or Steve Tendon's move. Another one is to realize local optimization doesn't always lead to global improvements. There's a corollary to that. Sometimes you got to slow down part of your value stream to make the whole value stream go better. Got to recognize that. And the final one I'm going to mention, again, this is a subset of first principles. I've got quite a few I've identified in my book. Is working beyond capacity causes waste. That's why you hear all this stuff about work in process and things like that. So anyway, that's five I consider pretty critical.
Yeah, and then one of the things then we need to kind of lead into is how do we use them? For instance, if delays cause waste, are we using cues maybe to manage and reduce delays and the handoffs and the handbacks, right? So that's one of the other things we need to wrap into this is how do we use those, Al?
Yeah, these definitely inform things. A lot of people talk about work in process as managing queues and WIP limits and things like that, but there's other pieces that there are different levels of work in process, and the overall picture is, well, how much are you giving teams? And so there are guidance from this. If we don't want to be overworked, because being overworked, working beyond capacity causes waste, and delays cause waste, et cetera, then what we recognize is there's guidance here, and this is basically how we do our training is, well, actually, what process or what technique do I use? And this is where pull where teams pull how much work they have to do because they know how much work they have and they know what their capacity is. Pull is a better method than push. This is why you see Kanban, Scrum, pretty much all the Agile methods, even including SAFe, whether you consider it Agile or not, it's a pull system that actually often reverts to a push system. That's part of the challenge there. But anyway, these principles give us the guidance of use a pull system. And this is why you get a lot of improvement when you start with a new Agile method, is simply if you did nothing else, but you truly went to a pull system where you could see how much work you have, you'll get a lot of improvement because you'll stop overloading people. And all of a sudden, you'll have less work to do because you'll have eliminated that waste.
All right. Thank you for joining us on today's 5 Minute Short. If you're watching this live or on replay, if you have any questions, please post them on LinkedIn, as well as any topics you might be thinking about that we could possibly cover in the future. Thanks. We'll see you on the next one.